Hello, hello. Hey, hello, hello. Oh, no singing because Bay says that my singing is terrible.
I didn't say it was terrible.
You didn't. You said you didn't care for it.
Yes.
Hi, y'all. How
What's
are
happening?
you? Welcome to today's live. Today's
Boom.
episode
What?
of Winner. All right. Babe seems to have his stuff together.
All right.
You started your situation?
We are live.
Okay. Have you started your watch party thing you're supposed to do?
I don't know.
All right.
There we go.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
What's up, everybody?
Hello. Hey, hello, hello. Oh, no.
I gotta mute the other side. But we are back with the power of now. Oh my God. Chapter 3 is gonna be crazy.
Welcome to today's episode of Books with Bae.
We need a fan. It's hot in here already. We're gonna have to. It's gonna get hot for chapter 3.
Welcome to today's episode of Books with Bae. I'm Nori.
It's JP.
This is Bae JP. I'm Bae, and we are reading The Power of Now. If you're joining us for the first time, this is what we're reading. We're gonna be going over chapter 3 today, which is titled Moving Deeply into the Now.
What's up, Carville? We're reading The Power of Now. It's a great book.
All right, babe, you ready to get started?
Today we're talking about chapter 3, moving deeply into the now. So the past couple days we've been talking and getting into this book. We went over the first 2 chapters plus the intro. Yeah. Now we're really talking about getting into the deep into the now and what does that actually mean. And the first subheading is don't seek yourself in the mind. And he starts up with a question or a phrase. I feel like there's still a great deal I need to learn about the workings of my mind before I can get anywhere near full consciousness or spiritual enlightenment. Mm-hmm. And so it's just saying that we have to work on ourselves before we can truly become enlightened and before we can, really live in the now. And so that's why he's been talking over the past couple of chapters about being present and understanding yourself so that you can be enlightened, and that to feel the full consciousness of now, to be present, you have to know yourself, because that involves watching your thoughts and becoming the watcher that he talked about last chapter of your mind, and so that you can see what's going on and then make the corrections with your actions or not engaging with those thoughts.
So for me, that statement opens up this whole thing about do you need to understand what's happening with the mind before you release your identification with the mind, before believing. And when we say identification with the mind, it means that you think that your thoughts is who you are. When you identifying with the mind, if you get a thought that says, oh, I shouldn't go for that position, or I'm not good enough for this, or I'm better than this, or whatever, you start believing that that's who you are, instead of seeing them just as what they are, which is thoughts. It's thoughts in your mind. And the thoughts in your mind are not always true. They're not always real. And most of the time, they're not really helping you become who you want to be. So when I read that, I actually highlighted.
I have that highlighted too.
I highlighted a line that Eckhart says, and he says, the ego's needs are endless. And that to me kind of boils down a lot about this chapter, is the idea that when you have your ego is always going to need stuff. Your ego will never be satisfied.
I want a new house. I want a new car. I want a better job.
I want a new man.
Even when we're happy, even when we're on vacation, I'm pretty good, babe. When we're on vacation, we're like, I want another vacation. Even when we're quote unquote happy, we're still in that stage of wanting.
And this gets a lot deeper into this chapter. So if you're like, I need more info on this, continue watching, because we will get into that. Oh
my goodness. Go ahead, read that. What you got highlighted?
I have the ego, of course. No, the ego is always seeking for something to attach itself to in order to uphold and strengthen its illusionary sense of self. And it will readily attach itself to your problems. So the ego is attaching yourself to what you think is a problem. So if you think something is a problem, the ego will attach itself to that. And remember, the ego is the image you have of yourself in your mind. So if there is an image of who you think you need to be in your head, there is. The image of who you think you need to be in your head, that's your ego. How much money you think you need to make, who you think you need to be married to, where you think you need to live, what kind of job you think you need to have. That's really what your ego is. Your ego is this man-made image of yourself. And that image comes from everything in your surroundings. It comes from your family, from your friends, from your church, if you go to church from your school is a big one. A school teaches you so much about, like, you gain so much of your ego from school, because school is like, if you get a college degree, you should be making X amount of money.
Dollars, right.
You should be getting X amount of X type of title. So your ego feeds into that stuff and makes you believe that unless you are that thing that's in your head, you shouldn't be happy, you shouldn't be satisfied, you shouldn't enjoy life, because that's what you're here to accomplish. And that's not quite true. I was reading one last line where he says, this is why for so many people, a large part of their sense of self is intimately connected to their problems.
Bruh.
A lot of us get who we are from our problems. If we don't have problems, then who are you?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't complain about, not making enough money in the job, or the job not appreciating you enough, or your partner not being loving and caring enough, then who are you if you cannot complain about your problems? A lot of us can only pull who we are from our problems.
Right.
Because when we don't have problems, it's like, what the fuck? What am I supposed to complain about?
Some people don't know how to live without
Yeah.
complaining about stuff. You all have those friends that whenever you get together, things could be great, but they're always, I have one friend who will remain nameless. Whenever I get with them, they're like, oh, you're so much more handsome, so much more smart, you're so much more talented. I could never do any of those things. Mm-hmm. And that is really just us, or in this case, this person, just looking for problems. And that's the ego, which I've actually learned recently, that even complaining is a form of the ego.
Mm-hmm. And the ego is not just thinking that you're better than someone. The ego is also thinking you're worse off than them too.
Yeah.
So I used to think the ego was just about like,
right, exactly,
you having so much confidence and being like, I'm better than everybody else. But it turns out, y'all, that the ego is also when I don't feel like I'm good enough, when I feel like, oh, so-and-so is better than me, or, the way that I could be doing that too, right. Or, anybody could do that. Like anytime, anybody could do that. Have you, I'm sure you can think at least one person where you might have shared an accomplishment, or you might have shared something else that happened, and they're like, that's not a big deal because anybody could do that. Mm-hmm. Yes, anybody can do that, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this person did it, right? So that's also your ego. So when you think about the ego, don't just think about it in terms of people thinking they're better than you, but also thinking that they're worse off than you, and that things are not that good for them. That's also part of the ego. Yeah. What do you have next for us?
So we also start talking about in this chapter, in the delusion of time. And this was huge. Like this chapter, I read the book and I listen to it at the same time. I probably listened to the chapter, if it took 40 minutes, probably like 2 hours just listening and rewinding, because, a lot of what's going on in my life particularly is all caught up with time, just having goals that are based on, I need to have X number of dollars by a certain age. I need to have this in my life by a certain time
period. Be a millionaire by 35.
Exactly.
That's like a real example.
Yeah, that's me, right?
That's him.
And, it's difficult for me because it's like, okay, how do I set goals if I can't think in the future? But he does go into that, so we'll get more into that. But so in the delusion of time, and this is from one of the questions that he got, it seems almost impossible to disidentify from the mind. We are all immersed in it. How do you teach a fish to fly? So basically, we're all just swimming, and we're trying to become present, and we're really learning how to fly opposed to just swimming. And then he says, here's the key. In the delusion of time, time and mind are inseparable. Remove time from the mind and it stops, unless you choose to use it.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Michelle. Hi,
What's
Natasha.
Up, Michelle? Oh my
we
God,
just saw the comments in here. We had not seen it. Hi. Whew. You need a moment to sit with that?
Man, the time. I'm telling y'all, chapter 3 is just...
Chapter 2 is ridiculous. So...
But think about it. Time and mind are inseparable. Remove the time from the mind and it stops. So we just have to really, I say it so simply, we just have to
stop worrying about the time.
Stop worrying about the time.
Easy for us to say. We don't got to be in nowhere. You know what I mean?
We do got to be somewhere.
But we do got to be somewhere.
I just told you we got to be somewhere at 6:30. And so I'm like, we got to get to this. We got to do this. We got to make it there.
And I'm like, if we go today, great. If not, I'll be there tomorrow. Like, I think a lot of us look at the time and we're like, well, time is ticking. Like, and sometimes the time gives me anxiety.
Oh no,
because then
that's exactly what it is.
I'm looking at the time and I'm like, bro, we supposed to be doing this.
I'm looking at the time. I'm like, I'm almost 35. Where's my $1 million at? Like, come on now. I need it. Put it on the
time
table.
gives me so much anxiety because then I'd be like, I'm 32, man. Like, oh my God, am I like not gonna do these other things I'm supposed to be doing? Like, time is ticking, especially women, because then it's like you have the whole birth situation going on.
We were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
What's going on, Steve? How you living?
So definitely time can be problematic. And check this out. The compulsion arises because the past gives you an identity and the future holds the promise of salvation or fulfillment in whatever form. How many of y'all think y'all gonna be saved in the future? How many of y'all looking at a situation right now and being
salvation.
Like, the future's gonna save me, baby? And we were just talking about people wanting to be saved. Actually, if you're on my list, you got the newsletter where I talked about no one is coming to save you. You have to save yourself.
Nobody.
And a lot of us think that the future is going to come save us. A lot of us look in our current situation and feel like, well, right now things are going terrible, but in the future, things are going to be different.
Right. And as soon as you said promise of salvation, I thought to Christianity.
Yes.
I was brought up in a Christian household. All my family went to the same church. And, if you're a Christian, it's the promise that, once you die, you're going to go to heaven and you'll meet the Lord and you'll reap the rewards of your time here on earth.
Your misery.
Right. But for now, you're not living in the present because you're so busy thinking about when I die, I got to make sure I have XYZ straight so I can get to this place. When in actuality, we make our own heaven and hell on earth today.
Based on what we think.
On what we think.
If you think that you are capable, if you think that your life is positive, if you think that you're achieving your goals, if you feel good about your every day, you are in heaven right now.
Right. Exactly.
But if you think that you're not worthy, if you think that bad things are always happen to you, if you think always, if you find yourself saying, why me, God, at least once a week, then you're living in hell right now too. And I think this is a place where religion to me gets a little bit kind of complicated and I don't know with this, because I feel like a lot of people say things like, oh, it's on God's timing, or I'm waiting for God's timing.
Right.
And I think there's a difference between wanting to move in alignment with the higher power, because you'll find in this book that Eckhart has nothing against religion.
Right.
Eckhart talks about God. He talks about, the scripture. He even includes verses that help support that it's all about being in the present, in the now. Right. So we'll share some of those with you too.
Right.
But I think a lot of us misinterpret it. I think a lot of us think God is going to tell me what to do, and I'm just going to sit here and wait until God tells me to do something. But you're not present right now because you're worried about the future whenever you get that message of the thing you think you're going to get.
Right. And
you're not taking action in the meantime.
Right. If you think about the first verse in the Bible, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, guess what?
Pulling out the book.
I know, pulling out the Bible, the first verse, right? Everybody knows that one. If you think about it, God as being us, we're really the ones that create the heaven and the earth. When you wake up in the morning, your thoughts in your mind is going to affect the rest of your day. Even when you're born, the situation you're put in, people let that determine their heaven or hell for the rest of their lives. And in truth, you do make your own heaven or hell, and you can choose to live in heaven right now if you change your mindset.
I love that you say that, because I think that there's this, when it comes to religion in particular and how we look at the idea of heaven and the idea of hell and God, we don't think of ourselves as co-creators.
Right.
I call myself a co-creator. Like, I co-create with God, with the universe, with whoever it is, the higher power, whatever label you want to put on it. I'm a co-creator of that because I came out of that. Whoever made all of this, they also made me, and they made him. So we are co-creators with that. Whatever is in the trees and the squirrels and the geckos and whatever animal I see around here is also inside me, and it's inside JP, and it's inside you too. But a lot of us think it's separate, and we're like, no, I can't be co-creating. I can't take accountability. I can't be responsible because that's God's job. You are God. You have the job. You need to make sure that it's going down right now in your life. But a lot of us don't do that because we want to be saved by the future.
And that clouds our judgments of the now, and we don't get to live in the now.
Yeah.
So the more you are focused on time, past and future, the more you miss the now, the most precious thing there is.
I have that highlighted too.
Of course she does.
What made you highlight that?
What made me highlight that is because for me, I've been, like I said, busy living in the future. And what I found over the past 2 weeks is that when I'm not thinking about quote unquote work, I'm cool. But as soon as I turn on that switch of, all right, here are all these lists of things that I need to do sometime in the future. And then my mind, I can even feel my head right now starting. It's like, no, we don't want to do any of that. So that's one thing. I'm just thinking about the future, and my mind is already, that anxiety is already starting to build up. So I'm just working on being more here and now.
See, the reason why I highlighted it was because I tend to spend a lot of time in the past, like to me, and I think a lot of us are constantly reliving the past. Like if you think about the holidays. This holiday is coming up, but what is the origin of this holiday? Where did this holiday come from? Or in the Garifuna culture, which is I'm a part of, we have a lot of ceremonies that we do when people die. So if you have a loved one that passes away, there's a lot of that goes into ensuring that that person's memory continues to stay alive. And I don't think it's unique to the Garifunas. I think people in general, when you love someone and they pass away, you want to keep their memory alive. You want to keep who they are alive. But that's another way of living in the past, because every time you're forcing yourself to keep that memory of that person alive, you are going to the past to get that. And if you are constantly trying to keep that person alive and they have already moved on, you're not allowing yourself to absorb what comes from them being in a different state in the world. So for me, once my uncle passed away, some of you might know this if you've been following for a while, when my uncle was murdered in 2016, it took me a long time for me to accept and stop resisting the fact that my uncle was dead. Like it took a while for me to do that. But once I finally did that, I realized that he's actually not dead. He's just transitioned to a different space and state. He's still with me. I feel his energy because we are all energy, and I feel his energy present. I know when he's around, I can feel his presence around me, but it's not so. I couldn't feel that unless I had let him go. If you don't let people go, you're gonna continue hurting, and that applies to people that pass away. That applies to relationships. That applies to jobs. That applies to opportunities, to expectations. Like you have to let these things go to see what's on the other side. One of the quotes I'm going to share with you from one of our future readings is that there is grace on the other side of suffering. And a lot of us don't get to see that grace because we don't want to go through the suffering. We want to skip the suffering. But if you go through the suffering, there's grace on the other side of that. So that's why.
She's in the past and I'm in the future.
And now we're both in the present. Yay. Life is now.
Life is now.
That's one of the lines that I highlighted because I think for many years of my life, I felt like I was working towards the point where I could start living. Where it was like, okay, right now, life is not happening for me. I'm putting in my time. If I got to put in their time, I'm putting in the work. If I got to put in the work, and then I get to start living. So when people like, I'm going to retire and then I get to start living.
Right.
That's how I used to think too. And I was okay with foregoing and being in situations that I wasn't happy in because I realized, well, I'm just putting in my time. When the time comes to start living, I'll be ready to do that. But it turns out that life is happening right now. Like living is happening in this moment. In this moment, I can choose to live a happy life or live a miserable life. I can choose to see something as a problem or something as an opportunity. And I think that's one reason why I highlighted this, because I felt like, yeah, life is happening now. It's not tomorrow. Tomorrow's not promised. This might be the last live you see from us. Who knows? But we are here with you and we're present. And that is more joyful than being in the past lamenting or being in the future hoping to be saved. So that's why I highlighted that.
Sometimes I feel like the future is going to be amazing.
I do. I feel like that too.
I highlighted a whole paragraph on the next page. So I'm just going to read a line from it. And it starts out with saying, when you remember the past, you reactivate a memory trace. And you do so now. The future is an imagine now, a projection of the mind. So we're projecting either way. We're thinking in the past or we're thinking in the future. You're projecting something that happened in the now or is going to happen into the now. And when we do that, that's when we start to get, going down that hole and we spiral like, oh, it turns into anxiety and worry and stress.
I highlighted, have you ever experienced, done, thought, or felt anything outside of the now? Do you ever think or ever will? Is it possible for anything to happen or be outside of the now? The answer is obvious, isn't it? Nothing ever happens in the past. It happens in the now. Nothing ever happens in the future. It happens in the now. That to me was like major. I have it highlighted, notes on the side and everything. Because I'm like, yeah, the future is the now that's going to happen later. Mm-hmm. And the past is the now that happened already.
Right.
But it always is the now. The future cannot exist without the now, and the past cannot exist without the now, because it's only in the now that you can take action. We can only do this video right now. We can't do it in the future. That would be now in the future. And that was major for me. When you think about the future, you do it now. Mm-hmm. So you know how you talked about the future? That was happening right now. It wasn't happening in the future. That's not possible. What else you got?
Moving on to the key to the spiritual dimension. We're starting this section. He says, if life-threatening emergency situations, the shift in consciousness from time to present sometimes happens naturally. So just think about any time that you might have gotten hurt, or that, you know, something may have happened to a family member. You weren't worried about the future or what was going on at work tomorrow. You're worried about, is that person safe now? How are they feeling now? How are they doing now? Mm-hmm. And not, you know, tomorrow I got to go do the laundry. No, you're worried about the safety and security of what's going on. But like when you hear a gunshot, or if a crowd of people start running, you know, the mind just automatically starts running with them. It doesn't think about, you know, what's going on the next week. Right. I'm gone, you know? So he's just saying, you know, we have consciousness, and we feel consciousness at times when we get into emergencies in that situation. But that doesn't have to be the only time that happens. You can learn to be more present.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Who we got over here? My friend, somebody. They're going now. Janice. What's up, Janice?
Okay, so how does it feel to be in the now? He does give us some insight on that. He says, he talks about people that are into extreme sports or extreme stuff. You know, the people that, you know, you see them and they're bungee jumping up air. Will Smith, perfect example. He, for his 50th birthday, he jumped out of a plane. Jada was about to have a mini heart attack about it. Right. Like, he talks about why people do that. Why people put themselves on the face and brink of death or danger.
On the edge.
On the edge. Like,
life on the edge.
Like right here. They're hanging out right here at the edge. Why does that happen? Well, he says, it forces them, those people that do that, it forces them into the now, that intensely alive state that is free of time, free of problems, free of thinking, free of the burden of the personality. Slipping away from the present moment, even for a second, can mean death. When you are cutting something that requires your attention, you don't start cutting and then look away. Because for a second, you can cut your finger
off.
Literally, you can done off. When you are, and that's one thing, when people are driving, that makes me uncomfortable, because they're like on their phone, and I'm like, how can you be on your phone?
You're not present.
You're not present. You're putting my life and yours on the line. So let's not do
that. More importantly,
my life. And I'm paying you to do that, so it makes me even more uncomfortable.
Oh, you're talking about on the lift.
On the lift, yeah, I'm talking about on the lift. So that was really interesting, because
I've had friends who get upset. I'm like, can you put the phone down while you're driving? And they get so upset. I know what I'm doing. I know how to drive.
I drive with my phone all the time. Okay, but not when I'm in the car, though. Do that on your own time, on your own life. When I'm in the car, let's just put the phone down. Thank you very much. Let's respect each other's lives. What do you have we're on page 52 of The Power and Now, if you're following along with us.
Actually, do I have anything up here? What do you got for 52?
For 52, I have suffering needs time. You cannot survive in the now. So yesterday we talked about how a lot of us create suffering for ourselves because we use suffering to identify ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then suffering also gives us pity. And people don't want pity. I know that people will be like, I don't want no pity. You may not want the word pity, but you like when people are like, hey, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. How's it going? Like, tell me, like, that feel good. People like to feel that people care. People like to feel heard and understood and seen. And that comes when you're suffering. People are going to look at you. People are going to be like, hey, how can I help you? What's going on? They're going to lean into you more than when you're not suffering. And they're going to give you more attention. And people love attention, because since babies, people have been giving us attention. So it becomes really competitive when you get older. So to me, the idea that if you don't have time, the suffering needs time is very real. Because even earlier today, I had an experience with someone and I was feeling it. And it was like, if I was present right now, I wouldn't be feeling the suffering because we were doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
But because I chose to be in the suffering space, I didn't allow myself to be present in the moment. Eckhart gives 2 questions that you can ask yourself. What at this moment is lacking? That's one question you can ask yourself. If you're feeling like I have all these things, well, what at this moment are you lacking? Right now. We're not lacking anything right now.
Yeah, and you asked me that a couple of days ago or maybe even a week or so ago, when I was thinking about the things that I didn't have or things I wanted to, not that I didn't have, things I wanted in the future. And you brought the point where, what about now? I mean, all of those things are worries right now. Like literally, like, money is an anxiety that I have, and you're like, well, we got money, right? But I'm busy thinking about months from now. Are we gonna have money? And I don't really need to be thinking about that, because we have money now and we're doing what we love to do in the now. So I just need to be present here. And he talks about the fruit of work. So we'll get into that. But just being open to the fruit from the work and doing it in the now, as opposed to worrying about if the fruit is going to be there or not in the future.
Page 56. 53. Do you have anything?
Nope.
I have, time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no greater obstacle to God than time. And this, I think, ties really closely with you and I were talking about earlier. And I wrote down, when you think you have time, you do not act in the now. So there might be things that you want to do now, but you're like, oh, I got time, I'm going to do that later. Or there might be an idea that you want to pursue for yourself, but you're like, oh, I got time, I'm going to do that later. There might be something that you think you wanted to do, but you're feeling like, oh, I could get to this later. And I think a lot of us know at least one person that is like, I waited so long to pursue that idea, to take that trip, to go on that vacation, to move to that city, and they never did. They're still exactly where they were years ago. I remember when I graduated from college, when I went off to college, and I used to come back to the Bronx, and I'd be like, in the same corner. Y'all still in the same corner. I've been living in this neighborhood for 10 years and y'all still in the same corner. How is that possible? And it's because people think that they have tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. And it's because we have this idea of time, this concept of time. And that really resonated with me. So I highlighted that.
So on the next page, he starts talking about a tree. You got that highlighted too?
Yeah.
Yep, he does. So the mind cannot know the tree, and we'll talk about the tree, but the mind cannot know the tree. It can only know facts or information about the tree. My mind cannot know you, only labels, judgments, facts, and opinions about you. Being alone knows directly. Only you can know you. So when people give you labels, or when you're giving labels and judgments to people, it's really just opinions. There are no real facts, because guess what? Only JP knows JP. Only Nori knows Nori. And his example of the tree is only the tree knows its true essence. We give it the label. We gave it the label of tree, us being humans. But a tree, if I ask a tree, what's your name? The tree is going to be like, what you mean?
I'm light. I'm energy.
Right.
I'm a source. I'm a source. And it could be called anything else too.
Right.
It's called a tree because somebody said, let's call this a tree.
Right.
But if you go to another country and they call it something else, you'll be like, oh, we call this. But that doesn't mean that it's not that thing that it is. You can have different names for something.
It's a tree in Spanish?
Yeah, no, árbol.
Árbol.
Yeah. So yes, different languages have different names for different labels for different things. And I think a lot of us are like, well, this is how we call it. Is that need to be right?
Right.
Is that need for someone to be wrong?
The need to be right. That was yesterday's conversation.
That was yesterday. If you need some word on the need to be right, check out chapter 2, which was yesterday.
So break the old patterns of present moment denial and present moment resistance. Make it your practice to withdraw attention from the past and the future whenever they are not needed. So stop living there. Stop living there. We go to the past and live in our mistakes or our victories. The things, there are things that went well in the past according to our opinions and our labels, and things that went bad. For me, I lost an election I was running for on a board. That would be something that would be on the bad side. But on the other side, I got a bunch of scholarships.
He was a Bill Gates scholar. That's what he said.
Both of those are illusions because they have nothing to do with what I'm doing now. Right?
And none of it really helps him right now.
Doesn't help me now, right? So all those accolades doesn't help me be successful in my business per se right now. Just the fact that I did those things. It's about the work that we're doing now, and the development that we're doing now is going to help us be successful in the now.
Then I have, you will observe that the future is usually imagined as either better or worse than the present. If the imagined future is better, it gives you hope or pleasurable anticipation. If it is worse, it creates anxiety. Both are illusory. I can't read. Through self-observation, more presence comes into your life automatically. Basically, the future is not good or bad or anything. It's just going to be whatever it is, right? The past is not good or bad. It's just whatever you need it to be. And all you have is this moment. And a lot of us think that the future is going to be better. And we use hope out of that. We will pull hope out of that. But maybe the future won't be better, right? But also maybe the future might be better. We don't know.
Better.
Whatever that means to you, we don't know.
Right. And
this really forces you to think about it as like, there's no point of going there. We got into the point that we'll say things like, hey, I'm taking a sneak peek in the future. Do you want to do this tomorrow? And then JP will be like, why are you in the future? I'm right here right now. I also low-key feel like he says that because he doesn't feel like answering my question. So he just be like, I'm in the now. I'm not going in the future. And I'm like,
but as soon as you ask that question, my mind automatically goes to the work and the label. And that's something I've been really working on as a couple of days is I have a thing of labeling things for the business as work. And I shouldn't necessarily call it work. I really shouldn't call it anything. It's really the stuff I want to do. Like this right here is what we want to do. Being successful is something that I want to do. If I'm going to label anything, I need to label it as that, but I'm really trying to get away from labeling it as work so I don't have that anxiety that comes with having to do that work.
And what work has meant for you in the past, too, because the other thing about living in the past, y'all, listen clearly right now, is Eckhart says that when you live in the past, you use the lenses of the past to look at what's going on right now. What that means is that if you go to the supermarket and you get a specific cashier, and she treats you in a certain way, let's say she's not nice to you, based on whatever you think it is. The next time you come to the store, you're going to assume that cashier is also not going to be nice to you.
You might just assume everybody's mean.
Everybody's going to
be mean, right?
As opposed to if you are in the now, you are okay with seeing people for who they are. You might give her another chance.
Give her some grace.
You don't give her some grace.
You don't know what's going on.
Exactly. But if you live in the past, you're gonna be like, don't go to that cashier over there. She's not rude. Like, don't go over there. No. Like, don't do like that's what it means to live in the past. Is to look at your now with the lenses from the past. What else do you have highlighted?
I think we got coming up. Be present as the watcher of your mind, of your thoughts and emotions, as well as your reactions in various situations. Be at least as interested in your reactions as in the situation or the person that causes you to react. This is huge, guys. Like,
that was me this morning.
This line, this was her this morning, but this is kind of a big part of our relationship, and looking at the things that Nori did or I did from the lens of they're trying to either hurt me or they're not respecting the rules or whatever it is. Yeah, petty pat. That stuff is so detrimental to relationships. I would probably guess that's why most relationships end, is because we're taking the actions of someone else as a personal attack on ourselves. For me, I think we talked about dishes last video, and so her not, for example, her not doing the dishes as a personal attack on me, that she doesn't want to do that because she doesn't respect the things that we agreed to do together. Allegedly.
Yeah, this was a major one because I think a lot of times we get caught up in the messenger that we miss out on the message. And I think there's been many instances in our relationship, particularly in the last 2 years, where I have really learned to just be like, okay, let me just not get caught up on what he said, and let me really take a moment to see, like, okay, what's at play here? What's triggering this? And earlier this morning, my pain body had a little episode.
I saw it.
Not towards JP.
It wasn't towards me.
But my pain body had a little episode, and in a matter of like 5 minutes, I think that's how long it lasted, I got really angry at someone. I was really upset at them. And then I realized, what am I really upset at? Then I started asking myself, what can I learn in this situation about what I have going on? And it turns out, y'all, that when I was growing up as a kid, there were a lot of broken promises that were made to me as a child. And as a result, I have an idea of those promises. And whenever people are breaking promises for me, it really triggers me in a specific way. And the thing about the broken promises thing is that I break promises all the time. However, I had not looked at the promises that I was breaking the same way that I looked at the promises that people were breaking for me.
Right.
And this particular line here, being at least as interested in your reaction as the situation, as in a situation or person that caused you to react that way, forces me to be like, yo, what's going on here? Where is this rooted in? What prompted you to act in a specific way? And that really, really helps me this morning, actually. But that before 2 o'clock, I had already sent a text to the person and been like, hey, by the way, that thing that happened earlier, like, it had nothing to do with you and everything to do with me, and I'm good. Like, I'm fine now. I've already processed this. I already released it. And a lot of us don't do that because we still caught up on what was said to us and how it was delivered to us. So, do you have anything else on this page?
I do. Hey, Grandma, what's going on?
Granny in the house.
Yeah. Intense presence is needed when certain situations trigger a reaction with a strong emotional charge, such as when your self-image is threatened, a challenge comes into your life that triggers fear, things go wrong, or an emotional conflict from the past that is brought up. Woo!
Yeah.
Triggers.
That was me this morning.
Triggers. And it takes self-awareness to be able to see those triggers. And so whenever you're in a fight with someone, and I always have this policy was that I like to be as drama-free as possible. So whenever someone would escalate, I would stay down here because I know at some point in time they can't stay up there by themselves. You can only maintain that energy at that level if both people or whoever's in the conversation is at that level. So if you can be aware and know that you're triggered by certain situations and triggered by certain things, you can stay balanced and not reach those emotional heights or emotional lows based on those triggers.
I can attest to that. That's how he is. If you come at JP and you over here, whether it's a happy here or a not happy here, he gonna be like, I'm a little down. And if he's like all the way down here, he gonna be like, I can't until you come all the way down here. So it's that trade-off, right? Like, because he's like that, whether it's positive or quote unquote negative.
Yeah.
So again, being consistent on how you look at things, that's kind of the trade-off. That's how it works.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we here? Oh, here. The energy that is withdrawn from the mind turns into presence. This is happening to me right now, and it's a little weird. Because I didn't realize how much time I was spending thinking in the future or in the past. And over the past few weeks, I've gotten really present. Mm-hmm. And I have all this energy that comes out of nowhere, and then it kind of like goes up and down. And I was wondering, like, where the hell is this energy coming from? Like, what's going on? Well, I'm not spending that time thinking anymore. Mm-hmm. So now that time that I was spending thinking is that energy that I was spending thinking and investing in the thoughts, I cannot utilize it and channel it into another space. Mm-hmm. And I am just now realizing that that's what's going on. That there's this additional energy that I'm tapping into because I am no longer attached to the thinking mind. Mm-hmm. And it's a little weird at first. So I'm working through it right now. I'm probably going to get back into my heavy meditation because we kind of be taking break of a lot of things. We do got to get back on that. But that's probably going to help me channel this energy in a more productive way. And by productive, whatever that means, these are all just words that we're using to put labels on what needs to happen. But I really would like to be able to channel my energy in a more intentional way instead of letting it control me. Like right now, if the energy comes over, it controls me. Sometimes I can even move as slow as I want to because I just have so much of it. And it's like, no, let's go at 1,000 miles per hour. And then I'm like, can we just go like 10 or 15? Mm-hmm. So I'm learning how to do that now. Right? We're going to letting go of psychological time. Oh my God. I really feel like this could be a whole nother video, to be honest with y'all.
Bruh, what are we at? 30, 40 minutes? We might need to. How much time we got left for this chapter?
There's a lot left in this chapter.
There's a lot left. But we're going to continue. We're going to continue.
It'll be a two-part. We're not going to go into feature just yet.
Yeah. So, letting go of psychological time. This is the most profound pages for me so far in this book, in this chapter. Learn to use time in the practical aspects of your life. We may call this clock time. So, clock time is I got to go to dinner. I got to be at work.
By 8 o'clock.
By 8 o'clock. That's clock time. We live in a world where things are based on time. There's no escaping that. So it's okay to use that. Mm-hmm. but immediately return to the present moment awareness when practical matters have been dealt with. In this way, you will know buildup of the psychological time, which is identification with the past and continuous compulsive projection into the future. So psychological time is our downfall. That's us building up our past or our future, or tearing down our past and our future. And that's where, since it's in the mind, that's why he calls it psychological versus actual clock time, which is kind of an earthly man-made thing.
Clock time is not just making an appointment or planning a trip. It includes learning from the past so you don't repeat the same mistakes over and over, setting goals and working towards them, predicting the future by means of patterns and laws, physical, mathematical, and so on. Learn from the past and taking appropriate action on the basis of our predictions. So you can use time, but you can use time to help you plan, to help you set your goals, to help you review your patterns, to help you look at what's working and not working. Those are all very practical and useful ways to use your time. The ways that you don't want to use your time is to worry, is to live in the future, or to relive the past. Those are the ways that keep you from being who you are here to be, because they keep you thinking that they keep you almost like a slave to the mind, where it's like, oh man, yeah, time is coming up. I need to hurry up and do this. Or, oh man, it is time for that deadline. Like I need to hurry up and send this. Or, like that way it causes that anxiety that we talked about. So that really, really resonated with me. Any lesson from the past becomes relevant and is applied now. Any planning as well as working towards achieving a particular goal is done now. An example I can think about this is when I started eating better, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go fully healthy on this later. Instead of doing it right now, fully healthy on this later. Like I'm just going to do a little bit. Instead of just being honest and saying, this is your starting point, being like, oh yeah, well, in a year from now, I'm going to be vegan, like, or whatever. I see people, I've done it, like just being like, oh, maybe in 6 months, I'm going to start working out, or thinking that this later that you can go into. That is a way where you're not applying the lesson now. One thing I do, I like order from a restaurant and be like, I'm done with this food for my life, the rest of my life.
You said that at least probably the past 5 weeks.
And then I'll order it again. And I order it again because I want to give them another chance. And sometimes I just don't feel like cooking, which is really the real reason why I do it, to be honest. But again, I'm not learning the lesson in the now, because if I had learned the lesson in the now, I wouldn't order from that place no more, because I know I don't mess with the food like that. And now to help me do that, I'll tell JP, hey, I'm done with this place. If I order from this place again, just let me know that we're done with this place. And it doesn't always work on the first try, but I think over time it works better, because after I said I was done with chicken and I was like, hey, I'm done with chicken. And you were like, okay, we're done with chicken. I'm done with chicken. And you reminded me the next time, I didn't order it again. So it does take me a few to like, the inertia is what Bay calls it, is the initial like push. Yeah. But once I'm in it, it's great.
Yeah, the inertia. If you become excessively focused on the goal, that's me. Perhaps because you are seeking happiness, fulfillment, or a more complete sense of self, the now is no longer honored. It becomes reduced to a mere stepping stone to the future with no intrinsic value. Bruh, he's pulling me out, calling me out right now.
That's you. That's you, bruh?
That's me, bruh.
That's you.
Because I'm so busy thinking about our life in the future, our goals, the things that I want to have secured so I can then have kids and all of that stuff, when I'm no longer honoring the present. So I'm not being present for myself. I'm not being present for my wife. I'm not being present for my family. And I'm not being the best that I can be in the now, because I'm so worried about being the best in the future. And I literally just had the same conversation with a client who's really worried about putting their best face forward. Like, oh, I don't want to do this because it's not my best. I want to make sure my best is polished. And the truth is, we are our best right now. What we put forward right now is our best. And yes, we do get better at things go on, but you have to be here and live in the now. We can't always be constantly thinking about, I'm going to be better in the future, because then you forget to live now. And how that reflects in your business is, you don't release a product or you don't release a video like this because you're so worried that it has to be edited or it has to be
the lighting is dark.
It has to have music. We're talking about your podcast and things like that. People get so obsessed with having those things when the true value of these videos is really the conversations that we're having now, not some music that people are going to think about later when they're not even thinking about the whatever it is that you're doing.
Which honestly makes me feel like I should just release this episode. Because I just like 3 episodes I'm sitting on because I have felt like we don't have the money to pay the editor to edit them, and I'm not going to release them until they get edited. So instead of doing that, I can literally press play or push them out today and just be like, all right, go out. There's a part of me that is like, bitch, no, because that's not going to look popping. But there's another part of me that is like, that's exactly what we should do it so that we can put ourselves in a position where we are present in the now. The information that's in those conversations is so powerful that I am robbing y'all from getting that because of my own insecurities of what perfection needs to look like.
Right.
So that definitely resonated with me.
Yeah. Your
life journey is no longer an adventure, just an obsessive need to arrive, to attain, to make it. That's
I gotta make it. Mama said, Mama said I'm gonna be somebody. I have that. He said that in here. We'll get to it, but he's like, you trying to be somebody, you trying to arrive. Yeah. But in reality, you ask anybody, like, JP, you already made it. Like, you have this, once again, looking in the past, just for the moment, you have a record of success. You're successful already. And it's like, yes, but, for me, I'm still, in the future. Yeah. But when I stop and look at it, we have a nice house, we have freedom. That's really what I want. I want freedom to be able to do what I want. And this is literally what I want to do. So, I love that. Yeah. The insanity of psychological time. Before that, I have the present moment is all you ever have. There's never a time when your life is not this moment. Is that not a fact? Always now. It's always now. Always now. Always. Always now. All right, babe. Go ahead. So the insanity of psychological time. You will not have any doubt that psychological time is the mental disease if you look at it at its collective manifestation. Oh, man. They occur, for example, in the forms of ideologues, there we go, such as communism, National Socialism, or any nationalism, or any rigid religious system beliefs, which operate under the implicit assumption that the higher good lies and therefore the end justifies the means. So this is kind of getting back into the means to an end thing. Right, and religion, particularly, the ones that are more strict, and what's the one where what's Muslim? What's the actual religion? Islam, where you get all these virgins in heaven, and whatever you're doing here on earth, your jihad or whatever. Think about the Christian conquests of. I think every religion has had a period of time where they wanted to take over because they felt they were the best way, the right way. If you think about the word civil is civilized, like wanting to get people that are civil, the conquering of groups, whether it's indigenous groups or anywhere for that nature, is this idea of wanting to convert people so that they can go to the right path, the right way. Right. That's all in the name of. You got that highlighted too, yeah. Yeah, that's all in the name of arriving, of getting to. We're here. This is our land. This is our religion. We're here. Genocide, Hitler. That's all a means to an end. Like, all these people have to die so we can cleanse the land, so we can be pure again. Like, all right, all of these groups are all a product of that. It's the idea that this needs to happen in order for that to happen, and that's why it's okay. Not infrequently does that mean there are enslavement, torture, and the murder of people in the present. Yeah. So we kill people now. Kill people now. So for the stuff that we want in the future. Absolutely. Safety. This is a chilling example of how belief in a future heaven creates present hell. Oh yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Yes, I have that. Present hell. Just thinking. And it's not even just like on our own is bad enough. But when it is a religion, when it is a group, it just makes it that much more like almost powerful, because it could destroy us all. One big war, a couple atomic bombs, we could all be gone. One nuke. And there was a point in time where, if you got mad, you could take your club and go maybe fight a couple people. Now, if the person who can press that button gets mad, they can annihilate countries with just the press of a button. And it's not really that things have changed as far as us being present in that way. It's just that the scale and the technology of the things that we can do is just on such a more massive scale.
Absolutely.
But that same core is there, and the reasons for those actions is there.
Even now, like when you look at cyberbullying, where it's not the same as like people shooting each other, shooting like, you know, like the shootings and stuff, which is already a big part of the culture, I think. People with like cyberbullying, you can say things to the kids and then you don't have to take their lives. They take their own lives. So that's like a whole nother level of taking your actions and wanting thinking what it's going to be better for you if you do this now for someone else. That manifests too. Are you always focused on, is fulfillment always just around the corner or confined to short-lived pleasures such as sex, food, drinks, drugs, or thrills and excitement? Are you always focused on becoming, achieving, attaining, or alternatively chasing some new thrill or pleasure? This resonated with me because I just shared with you that I want to shift from using language of I'm becoming to I'm being, because the idea of becoming is that happens in the future. Like when you become, you don't become now, you become later, right? Like no one is like, I am becoming now in the present. So the idea when you say being, it's like that's happening right now. I am being present. I'm being this. I'm being that. So that to me really spoke to me because I think I've been in a place where it's like, I'm going to get my fulfillment from this. Like definitely sex has been in there. Food. I'm a stress eater. So I'm stressed. I'm eating for an entire family of 4. Food, drinks. Drinks is a big thing. A lot of us feel like we can only be present if we are drinking. Like,
gotta have a drink.
You can't be at the happy hour without drinking because then people are going to start judging you. They're going to look at you weird. You know, you've heard the sayings, deals are made at happy hour. Deals are made at not outside of work or whatever it is. So people get a lot of thrill from that and a lot of happiness or fulfillment from that. But that doesn't last. You cannot be drunk for the rest of your life. If you are drunk for the rest of your life, you're going to die. Probably from some type of drug related, like alcohol related thing, and as opposed to maybe lose your home, lose your family. Like there are all these things that are at risk because we are constantly looking for that thrill. And I think this also explains how people can be like homeless but be happier. I've met people that are like, I don't have anything. I'm homeless. I'm good. I'd rather be out here.
Feels good not to have any bills.
I'd rather be out here being there like a slave, like y'all. Like I'd rather be in these streets. I understand it now.
Yeah, I definitely think about that a lot. You know, before the time where people had to have a job. You know, before all the land was accounted for. You know, when we're born today, it's not like we're just given land. Like you have to go out and work. You know, at one point in time, you were born and there was some land that needed to be worked, and you would just go work the land, and you would grow your own food, raise your own family, and you would have your own land. Today, you can't just go out and get your own land. You got to go get a job. Absolutely. And that's where my anxiety would come in. But right below them, where you're talking about the food, the sex, and the drugs, he also talks about, are you always focused on becoming, achieving, and obtaining, or alternatively chasing some new thrill or pleasure? That's being, once again, just looking to become, looking at achieving and attaining and chasing that thing. The last thing he says in this paragraph, are you waiting on a man or a woman to give you meaning to your life?
Yes. This also applies for kids too. This applies for kids because I think a lot of people be like, oh, when I have my kid, my life's gonna have meaning.
Right.
Like my life's gonna mean something when I have a child. Or some people might even say, you have a kid, you're finally responsible for someone. When in reality, you are the first person you are responsible for, not that baby. So I definitely think that this is a place where a lot of us fall prey to. I know I felt prey to that in the past too, where I felt like, okay, once I get with a specific type of partner, I'm gonna be good. But that's not always the case. What else you got?
We're flipping. Where we at?
We are at page. It's gonna be a part 2 to this.
The mind then creates an obsession with the future as an escape from the unsatisfactory present.
Obsessing with the future robs you from the present and now.
She got that wrote down and highlighted. Yes.
I also have, usually the future is a replica of the past. The reason why I highlighted this is because one of the questions somebody asks is this: but the belief that the future will be better than the present is not always an illusion. The present can be dreadful and things can get better in the future, and often they do. And then Eckhart comes through and shuts that shit down and tells you that usually the future is a replica of the past, which makes total sense, because if what you're doing right now is the same thing, that if you're not changing what you're doing now, then what you're doing now is
It's
the same thing that's
you're
going
doing
to
in
do
the past.
tomorrow.
Right.
And it's the same reason why the people that what I saw on the hood, on the corner, when I first moved to that neighborhood, were still in the corner when I went off to college years later. Because what you do doesn't change unless you change. And a lot of people are not changing. They just hope that things are going to change. They expect things to change. They assume things will change. But they're not actively being part of their own rescue to ensure that change actually happens. So that's that. That's that word. What you got?
Looks like the next thing, we both have this highlighted on the next page.
You go there.
All negativity is caused by the accumulation of psychological time and denial of the present. Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear are caused by too much future and not enough present. Guilt, regret, resentment, grievances, sadness, bitterness are all forms of non-forgiveness and cause too much past and not enough present. Non-forgiveness. What are you holding on to that you haven't forgiven somebody for? What grudges are you holding that are holding you back?
Consciously none, but I'm sure unconsciously there's a bunch.
But think about it. Unease, anxiety, tension, worry, stress. These things not only are those things bad enough, but these are the things that actually lead to disease, because all the things in the body really start in the mind. So if you're stressed out, there's anxiety, no wonder you're feeling down, because that leads to actual pains and aches in the body, whether it's just headaches like I was getting, or it could be more serious, like leads to cancer, strokes, and things like that.
Yeah. One thing I did want to reference, I've seen people when people get like money, people become rich, or they win the lotto or whatever, or they become celebrities and whatnot. People are always like, well, how can they not be happy with that money? Why are you acting like that? You got all this money.
Talking to you, Oprah, again.
If I had all this money, I'll be doing all these things left and right, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, it's like, again, your past doesn't change. So the future doesn't change too much from the present. So if right now you're the person that is careless financially, that shops, it's like likes the nice things in life without having the nice money to afford it, and you suddenly get the money, you're just gonna splurge on all these things because that's the thing that you're into. And that only amplifies who you are. I think people think money makes them some sort of saint or something like that, but in reality, money just amplifies who you are. So if you're someone that struggles with handling money, whether you have $1 or $1 million, you're gonna be living paycheck to paycheck. Like I know people that make a lot of money that be like, can I borrow XYZ dollars? And it's like, yo, you make mad money. Like,
you make more than me.
How come you don't got money? You make mad money. Well, it's because that person doesn't know how to handle money. So whether they have $1 million or $10, they're gonna be asking for $1 because they don't know how to handle money. And I think that's a really important point to like us when you're making our judgments of people and being like, well, I would do this differently and I would do that differently and blah, 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 blah. Just keeping in mind that everybody deserves that grace, because you don't know what you will do. You're not in that situation. And I can, like, if you look at what you're doing now, that's what you're going to do. If you're right now living paycheck to paycheck, if you are struggling with your savings, if you got all this things going on, if you get more money, you're going to be doing that same thing, but in a nicer apartment, with a nicer car, with more groceries in your house. It's the same thing is going to continue to manifest itself over and over again. So I thought it was important to point that out. If all your problems are perceived causes of suffering or happiness were miraculously removed from you today, but you had not become more present, more conscious, you will soon find yourself with similar set of problems or causes of suffering, like a shadow that follows you wherever you go. Ultimately, there's only one problem, the time-bound mind self. This really made me think about DC.
Mind self.
We were in DC and then we were struggling to be present in some areas, or we were in like, particularly for me, I was struggling a lot to be present, to enjoy my life. And I moved here and there were still pieces where I was still struggling about that. Like, even though I wasn't struggling the same way, the struggle was still there. And I think it's the idea that I just wasn't as present. I wasn't present in DC and I still wasn't as present here. And that's why those things were at play. And I think that really made me think about it. Like, you can remove yourself from the situation, but if you're not dealing with it, you're still going to deal with the situation. You can't escape the reality that you're going through.
Just kind of sheds light again on how we're different. She's more in the past. I think more in the future and what's going on.
You went to the next page, or you're good?
Yeah, I got the whole paragraph.
Oh, Lord.
You cannot be both unhappy and fully present in the now.
Okay, where's that?
You got it highlighted too. I see it
You
right
can
there.
have
She has it highlighted.
highlighted. Has it highlighted?
So yeah, being present, or you can't be unhappy and fully present. So if you're here in the now, if you're watching this video, if I'm talking to Bae, if you're talking to your Bae, if you're reading, you should be happy. Like there's no reason for you to be sad, because in the present there's just the present. There's just the present. There's the table, there's the computer, there's Bae. We're just here. We're being. We're not thinking, oh, what we're not doing. We're not thinking, oh, I gotta go update the website later, and oh, I don't want to do that, so now I'm unhappy. That's the only time that we get unhappy.
I also love that he says people don't have. When people refer to their life, they should actually be calling their life situation. That to me was a really powerful distinction, because I think people are like, well, my life sucks. Like, oh, my life is the worst, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, it's no, your life situation is what may suck. Like if you're in a place that you're not happy with, a job that doesn't feed your soul, that situation, it's not feeding your soul. But your life as a whole might be going pretty good. If you're watching this video, your life is going pretty good, because you have internet access, you have a device, whether it's a computer or a phone, like you have things that give you access to this. So I think a lot of us look at the situation and say the whole thing is terrible. Like if JP and I had a disagreement about something, I'd be like, my whole marriage is in shambles, when it's just one specific area that needs a little bit of work. So I think a lot of us generalize that often, and that keeps us from wanting to address it, because we're like, well, I can't change my whole life. Yes, you can't change your whole life, but you can change your job. And that's a situation. You can change your partner. That's another situation. You can change where you live. That's another situation. And I think the more you change those life situations that are keeping you from being present, the more you are able to be present. Prime example is us. We left from DC. We moved here. There was a lot in our life situation in DC that we wanted to be different. That didn't mean that we automatically became more present. It meant that we have more space to be present.
Right.
And that's what we're doing right now. You're still resisting what happened in the past, and now you're resisting what is. A lot of us are resisting what happened in the past.
We're resisting everything, man.
Resist everything.
We're resisting everything. And it's not our fault. We've been programmed by society, our surroundings, by our family, friends. Just when we came into this world, there were things waiting for us, and we have those things ingrained, and we think, oh, those are the right things. So we have to keep walking on that path of the right things, when in actuality we can choose our own path.
Even right now, I'm resisting the fact that I may not go to boxing because we're doing this video right now, and it's gonna take a little bit of time for us to wrap it up, and I don't want to rush this because of boxing, So that's me resisting that it might just be the case that we're not gonna go to boxing,
and
right?
I was resisting before, and
you even started,
I'm over it now, and now she's resisting it.
And now I'm like,
oh, she made a good point. We could just do it tomorrow or
tomorrow.
whatever. Like we got a membership. We can go whenever, right? But we were so set up. Last week it was Wednesday.
It's Wednesday night.
It's Wednesday night. We got to do this.
And now the universe is like, hey, try again.
Yeah.
All right. So next I have your life situation. Oh, Eckhart says, forget about your life situation for a while and pay attention to your life. So I'm going to actually answer. I'm going to read the...
Maybe I need to do a lot more of that. Just writing down my life and not worrying about the goals I want in the future. Let me take note of that.
So the format of this book, y'all, people ask questions and Eckhart responds. Okay? This is one of the questions that was raised, or statements that was raised. It is true that my present life situation is the result of things that happened in the past, but it's still my present situation, and being stuck in what makes me unhappy. Then Eckhart says, forget about your life situation for a while and pay attention to your life. What's the difference? Your life situation exists in time. Your life is now. Your life situation is mind stuff. Your life is real. So what's real is that we are being present with you right now. Our life situation is that we're not going to make it to boxing. That is perhaps the best example I can give you. And a lot of us say, well, oh, this is the worst. My life is terrible. I can't even make it to boxing. When in reality, it's like, no, our life is pretty dope. But boxing is a situation that we can address tomorrow. And I think a lot of us get really caught up on that. And that was really impactful for me. And then I said, what does this look like? Because I just wanted to have like clear examples on how this can show up in your life. But I already mentioned the thing about boxing. And another thing I have highlighted, do you have a problem right now? Right now, if you're fully here with us, do you have a problem? No, you don't, because you're here fully with us.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about it. And we can't rush this. There's a lot of stuff here.
Even now, her bringing it back up has brought back up my anxiety about we're possibly not gonna make it to boxing when I really should just be here with you guys, right?
Yeah, it happens.
It happens. We're working. That's why we're reading this.
Yeah, go next. You have a lot of highlight on this thing.
All right. So another good point he made was your life situation may be full of problems, as you said. Most life situations are, but find out if any of your problems are in the moment. Not tomorrow or in 10 minutes, but now. Do you have a problem in the now? Is that what you just read? Kind of. All right.
Yeah.
When you are full of problems, there is no room for anything else to enter. No room for a solution. So whenever you can make some room, create some space so that you find the life underneath your life situation. So us moving from DC, we moved last year, so a little bit over a year ago. And that was really the first time in my life, and I think in Babe's life as well, where we weren't required to be anywhere at a job, weren't in school, and had to be going to class. We really didn't have any real expectations from the outside world other than what we were putting on ourselves. And I know, during that time, the first couple of months, I felt like I was free. I felt like I was playing a lot of basketball. I was doing other athletic things, and I just felt like it was a really good time. But then, I started thinking about the future and was like, I should probably be more focused on getting this business going. When, I was truly being present, because this was the first time that I was able to feel the release of pressure of having to achieve or be at a job or just be doing anything.
And for me, that period of time didn't go like that. when we had that time when for the first time I didn't have to be anywhere, right? When that happened, I had a bit of a panic and a bit of an identity crisis, because I had defined myself by all these things, by all the labels I had. And suddenly it was like, I don't have no labels. I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to be in the office. Like, no one is cutting me a check. I need to be the one to go get that check myself. And it was a bit like nerve wracking, because I didn't know how to operate with that. And then at a point I felt like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Am I just here twiddling my thumbs? Or am I going to do something else? And that was a little challenging for me during that period of time, because I was like, well, do I need to be working? Do I not need to be working? Like, what do I need to be doing in this moment? Like this desire, this almost like obsession, as he mentioned earlier, to arrive to a certain place and not having that thing, or feeling like something was lacking. Again, the ego being like, you cannot enjoy yourself right now. You need to be working because that's what you're trained to do. And that was something that I struggled with a lot. One of the things that Eckhart says to be present and to create space is to use your senses fully.
Yes.
Be where you are. Look around. Just look. Don't interpret. See the light, shapes, colors, textures. Be aware of the silent present on each thing. Be aware of the space that allows everything to be. Listen to the sounds. Don't judge them. Listen to the silence underneath the sound. Touch something, anything, and feel and acknowledge its being. This is the part where I really have to work on, is the not judging the things and not interpreting them. I think I've gotten to the point where I can listen for it. I can see, I can engage my senses. But this part, I still interpret. I'm still finding myself, judging, interpreting and judging. I'm finding myself doing that still. But these things, engaging your senses, has really been major for me to be more present. Because if my mind drifts, I focus on what I'm hearing. I focus on what I'm touching. I focus on what I'm feeling, whether it's outside of my body or inside my body. And that has helped me a lot. Paul, so do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think I just have this whole page highlighted, so I'm just gonna say it.
I already know.
I got this note here.
JP got the whole book highlighted.
The whole page. All of chapter 3. All of chapter 3. All problems are illusions of the mind.
All right, this is where we might lose some of y'all.
If you found yourself in paradise, it wouldn't be long before your mind would say yes, but. It's about realizing that there are no problems, only situations. And this reminds me, I went to Jamaica. The first time I went to Jamaica, one of my fraternity brothers was getting married. And I remember the cab driver from the airport on the shuttle, he was just talking to us and someone mentioned something. And he was like, we don't have any problems in Jamaica, man, only situations. And I've always remembered that. And I say it to myself. And when some people talk about a problem, you may hear me sometimes say it's just a situation. But now that I'm reading this today, not even the first time I read this, reading this today, it resonates so much more because it's true. All the things that we think are wrong is truly because we think they're wrong. You know, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Same type of deal. So the things that we think, the things that we say, that's what creates our heaven or hell. That's what creates our problems. And when we only have situations to be dealt with or not.
In alignment with Babe on that.
Problems are mind-made and need time to survive. So if we're not thinking in the future, we can't have any problems. We're not thinking in the past, we don't have any problems because, as Dave said, here right now, talking to you, we don't have any problems.
I love this part when he says, only situations to be dealt with now or to be left alone and accepted as part of the isness of the present moment until they change or can be dealt with. A lot of us are like keeping all sorts of shit in our head alive that we don't plan on dealing with right now. Like, and then this is something that, ladies, I know you might not like me about this, but it's cool. We family. The idea of searching people's phones, for example.
Oh.
I know.
Go ahead.
The idea of searching people's phones, for example. I remember, I don't know what this was that JP and I did. I think I've gone through JP's phone once in the entire 8 years we've been together. And it was around my birthday. And I was so thirsty to see if he was going to do anything for me. And I think I searched it or something like that. And he was like, why are you looking at my phone? And I'm like, what? I'm not looking. And I'm like the worst liar, first of all. Like, if you catch me in a lie, you definitely know I'm lying because I just can't hide it at all. I'm just like, what? I'm not looking at the phone at all. I was just looking for that was a stupid thing to say because I could just been like, oh, I'm on the internet. Like, but I just didn't know how to lie to him, right? So the idea, one thing he told me at some point was, why you want to know information if you don't know nothing about it? And I remember hearing that, I'm like, this guy's a bit of a dick. Like, that's kind of mean. But as I look back, I found myself saying that to my girlfriends. The girlfriends that I knew that were going through their man's phone and, oh, I'm going to see what the fuck you doing. And I'm like, are you going to leave him? They're like, no, I'm not leaving him. So why are you going through the phone?
For evidence?
If you're going to look for evidence, but you're not going to act on the evidence, there's no point on doing it because you're worrying yourself. Now you in your feelings, you're hurt, you're doing all these other things, and that person living their life happily ever after, and now you all like, going through this shit. So sometimes that's an example of how we often bring a situation up that we're not even ready to deal with. If you're not ready to end that relationship, then don't bring that shit up because you're not going to leave. And now you're going to be hurt while this person is living their best life. Even with the job, if you're going to be complaining about your job, that was me. I complained about my job, not my last job, but the job before that. I think it was, I used to complain to JP a lot. Like towards the end of that stint, I was like, I'm done with this place. I can't come back there. And JP was like, babe, why don't you just leave this job? Like, if you are here, I'm tired of hearing you complaining about this job.
Go get another job.
Get another job, girl.
Get another job.
And I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing that. I already invested so much time. Okay, so stop complaining about it. Like, either stay at the job or leave the job. But a lot of us like to complain about the job instead of leaving the job because it's much better to complain about the job than to leave the job. So being mindful of how many things you're having in your mind that are causing you pain that you're holding on to that you can release if you just deal with it when you're ready to deal with it. Like,
what's up, Carla?
Like, you're ready to deal with it. So a lot of us are just out here not dealing with situations because we think it's easier to think about them. And we think and we hurt ourselves and we suffer. Remember that thing about love and suffering? That's how that manifests in your life. And that's what that really resonated with me. What else you got?
All it takes is a simple choice, a simple decision. No matter what happens, I will create no pain for myself. He says it's simple.
But we know.
It is a simple choice.
It
But
is.
the process of making that choice, it's what I like to think of it is we make one big choice. Like, I'm going to make the choice to get fit. Well, there are a bunch of little choices along the way that I also, by saying yes to this one thing, I'm saying yes to all these other smaller steps. And that's the hard part. It's yes, I'm going to make the choice to be present. But when I'm thinking in the past about this call I just had with my client, I'm not being present. So I have to make the choice every second to actually fulfill that bigger goal of being present.
The same applies to marriage. Honestly, we're going to talk about it. Like,
people
say, like, I want to marry the person that of my dreams. So I want to grow with someone. Let's use that one. I want to grow with someone. But when growing starts happening, they're like, nah, I'm good. Deuces.
Growth don't always feel good.
Marriage, you can grow with someone, but you have to be able to work with that growth. How you know what I mean? It's not just about I'm gonna grow with this partner. It's like I'm ready for whatever that's gonna look like.
Right.
And when you grow with a partner, when you have a relationship, it's not just the pictures that you see on Instagram or the Facebook Lives or whatever it is. It's also you being willing to experience what that person growing looks like. There are two different people coming in together to build a relationship. There are two different set of values that are coming in. There are two different sets of upbringing that are coming in. And this is going to take time. So people say they want to grow with a relationship. People say they want what we have. But when we tell them what we're doing, they'd be like, oh,
no.
Y'all do that? No.
I talk about that? No, I ain't
trying to talk about that.
We're literally, our friends, family come to us and say, I can talk to you because I can't talk to my spouse. So if you're my friends and you're hearing this, go talk to your spouse. Go talk to your spouse.
So yeah, that's the thing about growth. You need to be available for what that looks like. And a lot of us think growth looks a certain way. And people say, well, my grandparents were married for 100 years. And I'm like, okay, but you don't know what that cost your grandparents. You don't know how many challenges they faced in that period of time. And you're like, oh, well, people should just work through it. Would you work through some of these challenges? I don't know. So what else you got for us, P?
Where we at? What page are we on now, babe?
65.
65? I got the whole 65 highlighted. Whole page.
JP, we cannot highlight the whole page.
That's why I'm giving it to you, because I can talk about the whole page.
All right. So 65. Eckhart asked, why make it into a problem? Problem means that you are dwelling on a situation mentally without the intention. I lost myself. Here. Problem means that you're dwelling on a situation mentally without there being a true intention or possibility of taking action now, and that you are unconsciously making it part of your sense of self. So it's like saying, I want to have a better marriage, but you don't really want to have a better marriage right now. Right now you want to fight and be petty.
You want to win.
You want to win. You want to be right. Right now you want to be right, but you want to have a better marriage. You can't have a better marriage if you always want to be right. That doesn't work, because you're not always the only person that's right. Both people can be right, and being right comes sometimes at the expense of peace. You can be right, but you might not be in a peaceful environment in your house. You can be right, but you might be in conflict with your partner. And you have to ask yourself, what's more important to me? Is it to be right or to be at peace with my spouse, to be at peace in my home, and to know that I'm in a place that I'm loved and cared for? And that doesn't always is the same way. Sometimes people are willing to be like, fuck it, I'm just going to be wrong. I'm just going to be right. I don't care what they say. I'm not about to blah, 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 blah.
They're not going to talk to me like that.
They don't know who I am. They must have me fucked up. I've heard that line a couple of times. And then you are single. So
then you're single.
Then you're single. That was that. Also, I have, this was important. Another way that we make problems in our head is you're carrying in your mind the insane burden of 100 things that you will or may have to do in the future, instead of focusing your attention on the one thing that you can do now. This is me, like most of the time. Less than now, but I be the one to be like, I gotta do how many things? Oh my God, I'm not doing anything. I don't want to go. Like, that's me, because I think about all the things all those tiny decisions they talked about. I think about those, and then I'm like, I don't feel like doing none of that. So then I just shut down and don't do anything. And I think a lot of us find ourselves in that space because that's what we think we're supposed to do. You think you're supposed to worry. You must feel bad when you don't worry because you're like, well, everybody else is. I mean, at least speak for myself. I have sometimes felt bad when I don't worry because I think everybody is worrying and we're supposed to be in the worrying circle of life together, and I'm out. And it's like, oh man, I feel a little fucked up about that. But in reality, it's like it's a choice. You are choosing to worry, and I'm choosing not to worry. And the last thing I have here is when you create a problem, you create pain. All it takes is a simple choice, a simple decision. No matter what happens, I will create no more pain for myself. They just read this, so yeah, I got it. Also, Eckhart does say that you're not gonna make this choice unless you're fed up with suffering. Yes. So if you're listening to this part and you're like, if you're listening to this part and you're like, Nori, this sounds like gibberish, I could care less. Well, let me tell you why that is. You won't make that choice unless you are truly fed up with suffering, unless you have truly had enough. I have had enough, so I am ready for whatever Eckhart is telling me to do.
And I haven't reached my goal, so I'm like, I've had enough too. Of whatever it is I'm doing, I'm willing to change it because not only do I not have what I want, I'm not happy. Yeah. So I want to be happy. Yep.
You still on this page?
No, keep going. Next page.
Okay. For those of you following, page 66. Oh, yes. In a true emergency, the mind stops. You become totally present in the now, and something infinitely powerful takes over. This is why there are many reports of ordinary people suddenly becoming capable of incredibly courageous deeds. In any emergency, either you survive or you don't. Either way, it's not a problem. That definitely snatched my interest.
You survive or you don't.
You survive or you don't.
That's
it.
Most of the time you survive.
If you're here, you definitely survive, obviously. What do you have, baby?
I have a quantum leap in the evolution of consciousness.
Lord. All right. Oh, wait. Before you do that, I do have a line where he says, in the now, there are no problems. We already talked about that. And because there are no problems in the now, there's also no fear. Because a great deal of what people say, think, or do is actually motivated by fear, which of course is always linked with having your focus on the future and being out of touch with the now. And in the now, there's no problems. And when there's no problems, there's no fear. You can do whatever you want.
And there's only situations.
So go ahead, baby.
So a quantum leap in the evolution of consciousness. So the statement that they have here is, I have had glimpses of the state of freedom from the mind and time that you describe, but past and future are so overwhelmingly strong, I cannot keep them out for long. Then he goes on to say the time-bound mode of consciousness is deeply embedded in the human psyche. So we're born into it. We're born into this time of, clock time. We're born into the society of go, particularly if you're here in the States where it's achievement, go, efficiency, innovation. That's what we're born into. And it's something that is really hard to get out of because everywhere you look, it's all about that. And the time-bound mode of consciousness, for us to be able to get out of that, we just have to practice being more present. But it is deeply embedded. So that's why a lot of times people say I can't do it or it's going to be too hard because it just looks like there's so much against you when we doing that. Dave's going to hang out to the bathroom while we do that. So time-bound consciousness is deeply embedded in the human psyche, and the ending of time, we are breaking mind patterns that have dominated humans' life for eons, mind patterns that have created unimaginable suffering on a vast scale. So we're talking about this vast scale. We're talking about all over the world. So whenever you think about wars, whenever you think about conflict, it's these mind patterns. If you look at it, the U.S. versus Russia, that's something that's kind of ingrained in our heads, that back and forth. And it's been like that forever, even before we were born. If you think back to the space race between U.S. and Russia, that's just ego. And our mind patterns have created this pattern of, oh, Russia's bad. Or I'm pretty sure they think the same thing, about the U.S. And we have to be consciousness, or this unconsciousness is really just insanity.
Okay, so I don't know how much I missed, but did you
We're
share this here?
We're going down here.
We are breaking mind patterns.
Yeah, okay. I did. We're going down here to joys of being.
Okay, the joy of being. Honestly, here, what I highlighted was the question we can ask ourselves. Thanks, babe. And the question is there joy, ease, and lightness in what I'm doing now? And this is something that I've been asking myself.
Yeah, I asked myself when I read that today.
I told you I've been asking myself recently more. I can't
say this is light right now because this is bringing up a lot of stuff, but there is ease
and joy
in what we're doing because I get to learn about myself. I'm learning about you, and we're growing with these books. So there is ease and there is the lightness. Well, there's the joy, lightness, because this is a deep topic. I'm not going to say this is a light topic, but there is lightness to the willingness of wanting to do this. I don't have the same feelings when I have to pick up this book to read that I do when I'm thinking about, for example, marketing and outreach.
If there is no joy, ease, or lightness in what you're doing, it does not necessarily mean that you need to change what you're doing. It may be sufficient to change how. How is always more important than what. See if you can give much more attention to the doing than the result that you want to achieve through it. That is a place where I need a lot of work because I'm constantly looking at like, okay, what can I get out of this? How can I achieve my goal out of this situation? What else do I need to do to make the situation pop for me or work for me or whatever? And a lot of times the answer is focus on what you're doing. And I get so distracted in the desired outcome that I am not fully present in what I'm doing. And as a result, the quality of what I'm doing is not as robust as it could be. Like I could do better than what my best is right now if I only took the time to do that.
Right.
Your watch party has ended.
Live video interrupted. You don't have no service over here, but we good over here. So
all right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. We're almost done anyway, y'all. We got like 2 pages left.
Yeah.
I think you're back anyway. Okay. So I also have do not be concerned with the fruit of your action. Just give attention to the action itself. The fruit will come on its own accord. This is something that I see in the business world a lot too, where a lot of us have businesses and whatever, we constantly are obsessing with like the fruit. Like, do I have the following? Do I have the subscribers? Right. Do I have the
I'm looking at this little eye over here. I'm like, how many people are watching us? It's over here. How many people are watching this right now?
This desire for outcome instead of just being like, even if no one watches this video,
right.
JP and I are learning a lot from each other reading this book. We are learning a lot from Eckhart. So it really shouldn't matter whether it's one person watching or 0 people watching or 100, 200, thousands of people watching, right? But a lot of us get caught up with how we measure ourselves. And this is a lot, particularly for millennials, when we think about instant gratification, there are all these systems in place to give us instant gratification, whether it is the likes on Facebook, on Instagram, whether it is how many followers you have, how many friends you have. On your Facebook profile, it tells you how many people follow your page. These are not your friends. These are people that just follow your page. There's so much data to track how much people are following you and how important you are. And we get caught up on that. And that's why people that have millions of followers are broke. Some people got millions of followers, but they're not making money off of that. And it's because they caring about the number, but not about what that really, like, they're not focused on the doing. They only focus on the result and the fruit. You can have the fruit, but if you haven't put in the work for it, that fruit won't be as juicy, as delicious, and as healthy for you as it could be, because you were not focused on grooming the fruit. You were focused on the actual outcome of it instead of just trying to, grow your plant. So I can give you a real life example. I used to have this plant that I purchased when we first moved here. And hey, why are you laughing? Y'all see this?
Because I remember the plant.
I bought this plant when we first moved here, and I sucked the life out of this plant. Like, I wish I had, I don't even know if I have a picture of it. I need to look for a picture in my phone.
I was laughing because you went and got another plant.
I sucked the life out of that plant. And I was like, oh my goodness, how did I suck the life out of this plant? Like, that plant looks so disheveled and so like dead. And then I went and I got a new plant, right? And this plant, I asked someone, how do I care for the plant? A Lyft driver actually put me on game. And that plant I've had for much longer than the other plant. And look how beautiful this bonsai is growing. Now, you may be looking at this plant and being like, y'all only got little leaves on that. But honestly, bonsais take a lot of time to grow. And they release the leaves, obviously, like all the trees. But this part here, you see how thick this is? That first plant I had This part over here was as thick as this right here. That's
With-
how much
with no
life
leaves,
I
with no
sucked out of
leaves,
it.
with no
You
leaves.
had no leaf, and it was dead. It was so dead it didn't make no damn sense. So you can nurture. The same way I've nurtured this plant, you can also nurture yourself. And I think a lot of us don't do that because if I was worried about what fruit this plant is going to give me, I wouldn't have cared for it as much as just I'm just caring for the plant. This plant can give me anything as far as fruit is concerned, but it gives me a lot. I talk to this plant all the time. I tell it that it looks good and now it's growing beautifully. And I think of myself in parallel, like with this plant, because I care about it in a way that I have not cared about a plant before. So again, what are we doing here?
Well, here we're being free of psychological time.
All right.
You no longer pursue your goals with grim determination, driven by fear, anger, discontent, or the need to be someone.
The need to be someone.
My mama told me I was going to be someone.
I said, you're not someone already.
Right.
Like, are you not someone right now?
Well, she told
I
me
know
that
she meant
she meant well. She went well.
You know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Even just the thought of that was, oh, mama said I got to do something. Well, I better go do it for mama. You know, type deal. Mama did all this for me. I got to make sure I live up to
the expectation
of mama. And then when your deeper sense of self is derived from being, when you are free of becoming as a psychological need, neither your happiness nor your sense of self depends on the outcome. And so there is freedom from fear. That's all we want, man. We don't want to be scared of the future. We don't want to be scared of the things in our past. We just want to be present and be happy. And fear gets in the way of us seeing that because we're stuck with that psychological time and we're all in our heads.
This is the part that shook me on that page. When you are not attached to the results, what happens? What happens when you stop attaching to the fruit? What happens when you're no longer pressed about, the following or the likes or, the comments, whatever the hell it is that you want? What happens when you stop attaching to that? Neither failure or success has the power to change your inner state of being. That was deep for me because I've been in the business space, like with wellness. I'm saying business, but really more like hobbyish space for about 10 years. And there have been times where my mood was directly linked to how many followers I got, to how many people like certain posts on social, to how many people buy my product, to how many people open my newsletters, to how many people give me praise. Like there are so many things I've been attaching to because of that, because it determined how happy I was based on how people felt about it. And what I've learned is that when you are present and you're living life for you, I really don't care. I don't care. Like I care less. I'm still not at the point where I care 0%, but I definitely am in the single digits compared to where I was before. And it's like when I do something and people don't respond, it doesn't change how I feel about myself. I understand that, hey, I'm not the right fit for you. That's cool. That's not a problem. I'm gonna continue doing me. And I think a lot of us don't know how to do that because we've been taught to measure ourselves by what other people are doing to our left and to our right. And the idea that you can drop that measuring stick altogether and just live without an expectation, just live, that is new to me. But I really, really love it because it's less stressful, y'all. When you're not trying to impress nobody, life is great.
Just be you.
Just be you. And for me, growing up in Honduras, in the Garifuna community, I used to hear a lot of wording like, what is society gonna say? What are people gonna say? If you do this, what are they gonna say about our family? About the way we raised you? I raised you better than that. Like things, I used to hear those words and I really grew obsessed with making other people happy, with making sure the family name was always at the best way it could be.
Keep it at the
like
top.
I didn't want to
bring the family name down and dragging it through the streets.
Yeah. I didn't want to be that person that was trash. The person, I didn't want to be the cheap, what do they call it?
The black sheep.
The black sheep of the family. Like, I didn't want to be that person, although I'm pretty sure at some points I've been that person. But I didn't want to be that person because I wanted my family to love me and to be proud of me and to love my being. But now that I have this sense of oneness, now that I feel whole or more whole than ever before, even if my husband was to pass away tomorrow or whatever, like I'll be fine. Like, I know I'm going to be fine. And I think that's new for me because that would have terrified me like a year ago. Yeah. So, all right, we still 69.
I think I'm good. You got? You good?
I'm good.
All right. So on the last page of the chapter, we have the same exact thing highlighted here. So
literally the same thing.
Everything is honored, but nothing matters. Forms are born and die, yet you are aware of the internal underneath the forms. You know that nothing real can be threatened.
That line. Nothing real can be threatened. I've heard that line many, many times before, but I think it wasn't until I read it in this book.
Yeah, you hear it a lot when you talk about couples and relationships. It's if that person leaves, if it's real, you can't threaten that. They'll come back and all that. But the beginning of that, where did we go? Boom, boom, boom.
JP lost it. I gotta even have my book open.
Everything is honored, but nothing matters. That's hard.
Word. What does that mean?
It's hard for people to understand.
What does that mean to you?
What that means is, like, in the present, yes, everything's great. Like the achievements that we're getting, everything we're doing in the now, all that's great because we're humans. We're creative. All that we're manifesting comes from up here. But on the same side, we can't get caught up in that's the only thing, because at the end of the day, we're all going to be gone from this form. We're still going to be here spiritually, but at the end of the day, we're here in this form. We get to experience life. We get to taste foods. We get to touch things. But it all, in the end, it's all temporary. It's all temporary.
This reminds me. I was reading this kind of excerpt from Steve Jobs, and he said something to the effect of, I'm a billionaire. My life is a result of the work I've done, and my work has given me a lot of happiness and joy. However, outside of my my work, there are very little things that have brought me joy. And he said, I can hire someone to drive my car, but I cannot have someone take my illness from me. And that was just like, because a lot of us get caught up with the material things, but when you die, you ain't taking none of this shit home. Whatever home is, you're not taking it with you. It has no value. Right. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't get what you want from life. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be who you're here to be. But it means that you should not think that that's the only thing you are. Oprah, we talked about yesterday's episode. She's a billionaire. You guys know that. You don't know Oprah. Well, Oprah said that when she was a billionaire, she wasn't happy because she realized that all these things couldn't bring her the joy. They would have to be deeper into that. She actually recommended this book. Actually, she recommended another book that we're going to be reading too. Yeah. And she talked about how that she began this inner work in her 40s. But
it's a quote from her magazine on the back. So
sure is.
Right here.
It can transform your thinking. The result, more joy right now.
Right now.
Absolutely agree with this.
And then the last line of the chapter, when this is your state of being, how can you not succeed? You have already succeeded. You succeeded already.
And that's why.
So guys, you've already succeeded
in
who you are. And you've made it to this video all the way through.
All the way to the end.
Yeah.
This is really powerful because with us right now, we moved here from DC. We were making a lot of money then, and a lot by what y'all probably think a lot is.
Upper middle class standards.
We're in the six figures, if we're going to be honest about it. Yeah, I know we are open book. And now we're not. Now we are not in the six figures.
Smiles on our faces.
But we are much happier. I can speak for myself. I'm much happier today than I've ever been. Even when I was making six figures, and even when we were in that apartment in DC, all these things from the past, right? I know I can have those things.
Right.
And I know that those things don't bring me joy. And that is a very powerful thing for me because growing up in Honduras, growing up in this, JP is starving, y'all. Growing up in this village, in this community in Honduras with no running water, I could have never imagined of having those things. But I had those things, and I voluntarily stepped away from those things because those things didn't bring me joy.
We still have running water here.
We have running water in this apartment, Belle. And I think a lot of us think that more is going to give us happiness. More is going to give us the things that we're missing. But I'm here to tell you from someone that used to make six figures, and not that I'm not looking to make that amount of money again. Let me not be like, I'm trying to be a hippie living off a banner or anything. But I know that doesn't bring me happiness. So the next time I accomplish that, the next time we reach that milestone, it'll be different for us because we'll know that this doesn't make me happier than when I was happier when I didn't have it. And that's different for me. The idea that I can say, Being a millionaire is not gonna make me any happier than being a thousandaire, as Babe calls us.
Thousandaire.
A thousandaire, people that make in the thousands.
Us.
It's really freeing and liberating, because even when I have calls with clients that don't go as well, or whatever that means, even when people don't come on board as my clients, I'm like, all right, that's cool. It's fine. This is where the universe wants me to go right now, and I'm all right with that. And the power of now has really helped with a lot of that stuff. So highly recommend that you check it out, that you grab it from your library, that you share this video with a friend, with a loved one.
You need to get it, because see all these notes I got?
Yeah,
you should just go get it. I have the Audible, I have the ebook, and I have the hardcover.
Out here. Thank you so much for joining us today in tomorrow's video.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4.
If Chapter 4 is like anything, we're going to need like 3 hours for Chapter 4.
We might need to do a few part videos for this.
We'll see. All right, guys. So as always, let us know if you have any questions, any feedback, anything you want us to maybe read in the future. Hit us up here on Facebook. You hit us up on Yonori's page. Hit them up on my page, and just let us know what you think about Books with Bae.
Books with Bae in the house. You can follow us on Instagram if you're into that. It's at Books with Bae, at BOOKSWIT, no H, BAE. Thank you for spending time with us today. We appreciate you. You could be anywhere, but you decided to be here with us.
All right.
And we don't take that for granted. Hasta mañana. And also, in case you're wondering, no boxing.
Yoga and stretching this evening.
Yes, yoga's light.
After dinner.
I'm hungry.